Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the WMT Royal Marine M16-010A. This watch is available from WMTwatches.com for $440, which is €387. WMT watches are a well-established microbrand. They were founded in 2018 and they're based in Hong Kong. This piece is an homage to the Rolex Submariner 5513, which was worn by Roger Moore in the 1973 James Bond film Live and Let Die. In the film, Q gives James Bond a 5513 Submariner, which has two features. It has a magnetic feature and also rotating bus or bezel feature. So, in the film, Roger Moore and Jane Seymour, playing James Bond and Solitaire respectively, are bound to a cage which is suspended above a shark tank. So their wrists are bound to the cage using a rope, and Roger Moore uses the rotating bus or bezel on the 5513 Submariner to cut the rope, and he frees James Bond himself and also Solitaire. And this always stuck in my mind. It was the precise moment that sparked my interest in watches and the Rolex Submariner, and I made the decision that the Rolex Submariner was a cool watch and I wanted to own one. But the problem was I was 19 years old and a student at university, and it actually took me 2 years to save up from 19 to 21 years old when I was a graduate to have the £2,500 needed to buy my first pre-owned Submariner with box and papers. And that was the precise moment that sparked my interest in watch collecting and the Rolex Submariner. And I can honestly say it was one of the happiest days of my life. It was an incredible dopamine rush, the highest of highs. So at that point, the 5513 Submariner had been discontinued and the 14060M was the Submariner of the day. But the 5513 film prop used in the film Live and Let Die from 1973 always stuck in my mind. So this piece is a faithful homage to it. As you can see, it has a very similar rotating bus or bezel as per the film prop. Now, the original film prop used by Roger Moore was auctioned by Phillips Auction House in Geneva in 2015 for an incredible 365,000 Swiss francs, which is €392,000, and Roger Moore signed the inside of the case back. So the film prop featured a rotating bus or bezel, and if you look at the front of the end links in this piece, you can see there is a hole drilled in it because the original film prop had a spool inside it which had a wire wrapped around it, and what the production team did was they pulled the wire through this hole and that rotated the spool and it made the watch rotate, and they filmed that with the bus or bezel rotating and cutting the rope. So that's actually how they made the film prop rotate. This one doesn't have a spool inside, but it does have the hole drilled in it as per the original film prop used in 1973. So, firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a cardboard watch box, which is housed inside this outer white cardboard box, and as you can see, we have the WMT watches logo, which is a circle and triangle, and then it says Watch Experimental Unit, the original vintage watch store. So this is the outer box, and one removes this inner cardboard box from it. As you can see, it has a vintage style label to it, has a ribbon on the drawer which you withdraw from the sleeve, which is a snug fit. Foam protective panel you remove. That does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. Inside the base we have a foam cutout panel in the shape of the watch. There's also two cutouts. One is for the spring bar tool, and as you can see it has an elasticated strap, and I've removed it to make it easier to show you. So it's made from mild steel, which is nickel plated, nailed shank, two-prong fork at one end and a push pin at the other end. Now inside there's also a vial, and you remove the vial by pulling on the ribbon, which is good attention to detail. So this vial has a cork in it which seals it, and inside there's a spare set of stainless steel spring bars if you want to remove the bracelet and fit a strap. So good to get that included. With regards to the items that come with the piece, you also get this card which has WMT's logo and Watch Experimental Unit. And you also get this card, which is the warranty card, as you can see, and it has the reference number for the piece, M16-010A. On the reverse, it has the instructions for how to operate the movement used, which is the Ronda caliber 756 quartz, which is Swiss made. Now, in the case back, it has a button which you depress using the spring bar tool, and that advances the hour and minute hand, which I'll demonstrate. And this is something different. You won't have seen this before, because usually with quartz pieces, one would unscrew the crown and then use the crown to set the time using the winding stem. This movement, the Ronda caliber 756 quartz, does not have a winding stem, and therefore it's not operated by the crown in the conventional manner. It has a button in the case back, and you depress the button and that advances the hands, and I'll show you how that works. It's a very good movement. So the watch is covered by a 12-month international warranty, which is very good, and you can read the instructions on the reverse of the card. Now lastly, one also gets this vintage style card, and it says Intelligence Agency Collection and WMT Scientific Defence, because all their watches have a vintage or military themed aesthetic to it, and this one obviously is an homage to the 5513 Submariner used in the James Bond film Live and Let Die, as I've detailed. So good presentation, and the watch box does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping. 12 months of warranty is good, and the instructions are clear and concise. The diagrams are easy to follow, but it's very simple to operate the Ronda caliber 756 quartz. So firstly, I'll show you the crown and how it operates. Now, as I've detailed, this piece does not have a conventional crown and winding stem. The crown actually locks the movement and the buzz or bezel from rotating. So you unscrew the crown, which provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters. It's coin edge finished and signed with the WMT watch's emblem to a good standard. Feels silky smooth. Minimal number of turns required to unscrew it. Now, it actually rotates the entire watch, not just the bezel as per 120 click unidirectional bezel as one would expect. It can rotate both clockwise and anti-clockwise, and this is exactly the same as the 1973 film prop used in the Live and Let Die film. The watch dial, the movement, the hands and also the bezel all rotated with a rotating buzzsaw bezel. Now if you look closely at the bezel, you can see that it's a buzzsaw bezel. It's not a scalloped bezel as per the 5513, so it is a faithful homage to the buzzsaw bezel used on the film prop. And it rotates smoothly, no friction whatsoever. The original film prop from 1973, as I've detailed, had a spool inside it, and the production department wrapped a wire around the spool, rather like a fishing spool on a fishing rod. And when they pulled the wire through the hole in the front of the case, as you can see, there's a hole in the end link. That's made the spool unwind, and it had the effect of rotating the buzzsaw bezel clockwise, so it looked like the buzzsaw was being powered by the watch in the film. And Roger Moore, playing James Bond, used the buzzsaw bezel to cut the rope and free the wrists of himself and also Solitaire, played by Jane Seymour. So this rotates very similar to the film prop, and it's very good. So in order to lock it into position, you screw the crown back down. So what you do to get it to align perfectly on 12 o'clock or the 60-minute tick, you partially screw it down, you don't screw it all the way, and then when you rotate it, you can feel it click. It locks into position bang on 12 o'clock. So the loom pip, dial and the chapter ring all align correctly at the centre of the case, and then you screw the crown down. I'll just test it again to make sure it aligns correctly. So you unscrew it fully, minimal number of turns. It can rotate clockwise and anti-clockwise. I'll just show you the case back also rotates as well. The whole movement. I'll open the bracelet and you can see it better. Everything rotates inside the head of the piece. Case back, movement, crystal, dial, handset, also the buzzsaw bezel, both clockwise and anti-clockwise, and it rotates smoothly, minimal friction. And in the centre of the stainless steel case back, you can see the dimple I'm referring to. That's the button that actually operates the movement. You depress the button, which is stainless steel, and that advances the hour and minute hand. There's no second hand. The film prop did not have a second hand either. So let's check the alignment again. So you can rotate it clockwise and anti-clockwise as per the film prop. And then what you do is you partially screw down the crown. You don't screw it down all the way home. And then what you do is rotate it, and you can actually feel it register. It clicks when it's on the centre. When it's bang on 12 o'clock or 60, then you screw the screw down crown down. And this locks it into position, and the alignment is correct. It doesn't move out of position then. The rotating buzzsaw bezel, the movement, the dial, and also the crystal and the case back are now locked. And it works very well, because if you want to rotate it as per in the film prop, you just unscrew it. And it rotates very well, very smoothly, just like the film prop. It's fantastic. I really like it. I think it's very cool. So you just screw it down partially. You can feel it click. And then you simply screw it down. Works fantastic. The crystal is made from double domed acrylic crystal. Now, acrylic is not as hard and scratch resistant as sapphire crystal, but I'm not going to be critical of it because the 5513 from 1973, as per the film prop, used a plexiglass crystal. Plexiglass is like acrylic, and it has this characteristic distortion, and it's a box top hat crystal. As you can see, it does look visually very similar to a 5513 Submariner crystal, which was made from plexiglass. Clarity is excellent, there's no AR coating. Really, you don't need AR coating on an acrylic crystal because the clarity is superior to sapphire crystal, and you can see even when I tilt the piece at an oblique angle, due to the thickness of the acrylic, it actually would have a magnification or distortion effect if it were single domes, but this is double domed, so it's curved on the underside, curved on the top side. That reduces the magnification effect, also reduces the distortion. But the other thing is, it doesn't look as reflective as a single domed acrylic crystal or plexiglass crystal. So it doesn't have AR coating, but it's surprisingly good. Doesn't reflect the light like a mirror. There is some glare on it, as one expects. That is just a characteristic of acrylic domed crystals, but I'm pleased to see they used a double dome crystal rather than single domed. So it does add some thickness to the piece. This is 14.6, but however, one has to expect that because the 5513 Submariner was also a thick piece because it used a thick double dome box top hat plexiglass crystal. The dial is matte black and has printed indices as per the 5513, which is an homage to. Peach patina tone to the C3 Superluminova. Proportions of the indices are correct. White minute ticks on the chapter ring are printed with nice crisp high definition ticks. Text on the dial is nice and crisp and sharp. It's not too thick and blurry, and the fonts used for the 330 feet equals 100M is Garamond font, which is heavily serified as per the 5513 Submariner from 1973. So quality of the printing is good, it's high definition. The Mercedes handset and pencil hand, minute hand are correctly proportioned. They look very similar to the 5513 Mercedes handset. You'll notice that the second hand is absent because the film prop didn't have a second hand on it because it was rotating, as you can see, as per this one. They didn't have a second hand because the film prop didn't actually have a movement inside it. It wasn't a working watch. It didn't have a genuine 5513 movement in it. But the spool replaced the movement inside the case, so there wasn't any room for a quartz movement, for example, to make the second hand tick. So the film prop simply had two hands. It had a Mercedes minute hand and a pencil minute hand and a Mercedes hour hand, same as this one. So this is a faithful homage to it, and it could have a second hand on it because the Ronda caliber 756 quartz does drive a second hand, but this one doesn't have it. But I think it's good because it's exactly the same as the film prop. So works very well. Let's look at the case finishing. Flawless mirror polishing to the flanks, and we've got pierced lugs with holes in the lugs, which is like a 5513. This is good because it makes it easy to remove the spring bars. It has standard spring bars rather than quick release spring bars. Visually it does look very similar to a 5513, which had pierced lugs. Flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. Nice large mirror polish bevel, which marks the transition between the top edge of the case, which is brushed satin finished. And I like the large bevels because it does look visually very similar to a 5513. Has the same 39mm case diameter. The end links are female pivoted end links, as you can see, and they're hollow as per the 5513. Articulate freely, they don't feel stiff or kink, but they do have a lot of longitudinal, lateral, side to side and up and down play, so there is room for tightening up the tolerances. That's something that WMT could do. The bracelet is a rivet link bracelet, as you can see, and in the ends of the rivet link bracelet it does have flathead screws in the rivets, so it is possible to resize the bracelet, and it can be sized down to a minimum 6-inch wrist size, and it will fit up to a maximum 8-inch wrist. Now, WMT watches do offer this piece on 3 different bracelet lengths: standard, large and extra large. If you have an 8-inch plus wrist, I recommend the extra large. That will fit an 8 to 9-inch wrist. If you have a 7 to 8-inch wrist, I recommend the large bracelet, and if you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist respectively, I recommend the standard size. This one, for reference, is the large size, and it will fit a 7 to 8-inch wrist, and it hasn't been sized, but it fits my 8-inch wrist perfectly. So if you need a larger than 8-inch bracelet, you can opt for the extra large, which will fit an 8 to 9-inch. So it's good that they offer the 3 different bracelet lengths to suit collectors with a 6 to 7, 7 to 8 or 8 to 9-inch wrist respectively. Beautiful lustre to the Oyster style bracelet, which has rivet links as per early versions of the 5513, and it articulates very freely. None of the links feel stiff, they don't kink, articulates very freely, but the negative is it does rattle. There is an excess amount of lateral, longitudinal, side to side and up and down play. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, female Poutilene links articulate freely, don't feel stiff or kink, but they do have excess play. Bracelet rattles. It is a sloppy bracelet. They could tighten up the screw pins and the tolerances because it does have too much play. But however, this was like 1973 5513 Oyster style bracelets. It does feel like a vintage piece with a sloppy bracelet with lots of wear. So some collectors subjectively might like it because it does actually feel very like a rivet bracelet from the 1970s, but I think they could tighten it up. So let's look at the clasp. This does have a vintage Rolex flip-lock style clasp. I think they should have used the same clasp that was used on the 5513. This does look like an early version of a Rolex flip-lock clasp. It's signed to a good standard with an embossed WMT watches emblem, which is the circle and triangle. Nice large mirror polished bevels, which mark the transition between the body, which is brushed satin finished, and the flanks, which is mirror polished. 6 micro adjustment holes in the flanks is good because in the absence of half links either side of the clasp, having 6 micro adjustment holes in the clasp does give the perfect fit. I think they could further enhance it by adding a half link on the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side of the clasp, but however, in the absence of a micro adjustment clasp as per a glide lock clasp, this works very well. So plenty of adjustment. Flawless mirror polishing to the interior, and it's pressed stainless steel, which is made from 316L grade. Does look visually very similar to a 5513 Oyster lock clasp. So as you can see, WMT logo and WMT and watch experimental unit, all engraved with nice high definition engraving. Mirror polishing is flawless. No sharp edges to the top edge or the low edge of the flanks. No sharp corners to the centre section. Let's check the hinge pins. Left hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, but does have excess longitudinal, lateral, side to side and up and down play, so they need to tighten up the tolerances. Centre hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, but again, does have excess play, so they need to tighten it up. Lastly, let's check the right hand hinge pin. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, but has significant excess play. Cumulative effect is too much play in the 3 hinge pins, left, centre and right. They need to tighten up the tolerances to make them a friction interference fit. My concern is the long-term durability because the pins are put under excess shear load by the excess play. They really need to tighten up the tolerances, but it's well finished and aesthetically pleasing, and on a positive note, snap shut with a nice positive click, so it's secure. Right, so I'll show you the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back, and it's engraved with the WMT emblem and also a broad arrow to denote that it's military issued. But of course this is a film prop, or an homage to a film prop, so it's not really military issued to the British Ministry of Defence. But you can see underneath, just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. It's engraved with the serial number of the piece, which is good. And in the centre, we have a stainless steel button, which is like a dimple, and you depress that with a spring bar tool, which I'll demonstrate, and that sets the hour and minute hand. Concentric CNC lathe tool machining to the case back, and the edges are milled with flats, and they've been deburred and chamfered very well. Now it is a bubble back case back which provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 metres or 330 feet, so it does add some thickness to the piece, and strictly speaking this isn't necessary because this is powered by the quartz Ronda 756, which is a low profile quartz. Therefore it doesn't have a rotor as per an automatic like the Seiko NH35A. It doesn't need to have such a deep bubble back case back in order to provide clearance for a rotor. So they could have made the case back flatter and therefore reduced the thickness by 2mm because it is a thick piece at 14.6. But however, I do appreciate the case is hermetically sealed in order for the case back, the movement, the crystal, the dial and the handset all to rotate together inside the case itself. So I do appreciate they've had to seal it and provide 100 metres of hermetic seal and therefore add thickness to the case back. But I think they could reduce it by 2mm and make it flatter because it is a bubble back case back, but visually it does look similar to a 5513 case back, which of course is sterile. So I'll demonstrate how you set the time. Now I need to be able to feel the button in the case back, so in order to facilitate that I'm going to remove my glove. Now what you do is you engage the push pin end of the spring bar tool into the case back. Now just bear with me, I'll get purchase on it. Right, so I've now engaged the spring bar tool in the button, which is like a dimple you depress in the centre. Now, if you depress it quickly, you can advance the minute hand, which is a pencil hand, quickly. Just bear with me, I'll get it to engage again. Right. So, if you press it quickly in pulses, like so, you can actually advance the minute hand, because there's no second hand, but if you press the button quickly, just with pulses of pressing, you can actually move the minute hand slowly, just by one click at a time, and advance it 1 minute at a time on the chaptering. But if you want to cycle through the hour hand through the 12 hours, you press in the button firmly and you hold it. You hold the button in constantly, and you can see what's happening now. The Ronda caliber 756 quartz is now cycling through the 12 hours, so both the minute and hour hand will cycle through. Now the negative is, it only rotates clockwise, it never rotates anti-clockwise. So, unlike a movement with a crown and winding stem, if you go too far with the minute or the hour hand, you can't go back anti-clockwise. You have to then cycle through another 12 hours, which is time consuming, it's laborious. But you just get used to it. So for example, if I want to move this round, I'm now getting ready to withdraw the spring bar from the button, and that will stop it dead. It will hack the movement. But you can fine tune it. So if you engage the spring bar tool in the button, once you get close to where you want it to be, you can just press it in lightly, like so, just with pulses. So you just press the button gently. Just bear with me, I'll line it up again. There we go. So when you get it close to where you want to set it, you can pull out the spring bar tool, it will stop. And then what you can do is you can press it in gently, just with pulses, like so. And you can set the minute hand precisely to the minute on the chaptering. Now it does take some practice because the button is very sensitive, so you only have to give it light pressure when you're giving it just light presses to advance the minute hand. Just very light pressure is needed on the dimple button. If you press it too hard, it advances the hour and minute hand. So when you press it hard, it cycles through smoothly. So it does take some getting used to, but once you become accustomed to it, actually it's quick to cycle through the 12 hours and set the time precisely to the minutes. Now you can't set it precisely to the second because of course the second hand is absent, but it works very well. The only real negative to it is the lack of, it can't rotate anti-clockwise again, so you can only cycle through clockwise only, both the minute and hour hand. But it does stop dead. When you withdraw the spring bar from the button in the centre of the case back, the minute hand stops immediately. So you can actually get used to setting it very precisely just by pressing it in pulses like that. Quick, short presses will advance the minute hand, just the minute hand only, rather than cycling through, as you can see. I can actually set it precisely to the minute with practice. So for example, I can get it bang on, the minute hand bang on 12 o'clock, or bang on 10 past for example. I'll bring it up to 10 past, just bear with me. There you are. And then if I want to advance it, it's now at 4 o'clock, well 10 past 4. I press it in and hold it, just bear with me, I'll engage it again. I press it in and hold it and then cycle through. So it works very well. And you do get used to it. Now it is delicate, and what I mean by that is it's sensitive. So when you press the dimple in the centre of the button, you only need very light pressure to advance it minute by minute. You press it harder and hold it in firmly to cycle it through the 12 hours to move the minute hand. But this is good as an alternative to the crown, because obviously the crown is taken up. The functionality of it, it doesn't have a winding stem. The Ronda caliber 756 quartz does not have a winding stem which is driven by rotating a crown. The crown is just a lock which locks the movement and the dial and the handset and the crystal and the bezel. And as I've shown you, the case back also rotates. When you rotate, just bear with me, I'll do it. When you rotate the bezel, it also rotates the case back as well. So the entire watch, the case back, the crown, the case back, the crystal, the movements, and also the handset and dial, they're hermetically sealed to 100 meters, as is this button in the center of the case back. So the whole movement, including the case back and the crystal, rotate inside the head of the piece as per the film prop. So it works very well. And as I've detailed, just partially screw down the crown, and then you feel it clicks. Bang on 12 o'clock, bang on 60. So now the dial, the bezel, and the hands, everything is aligned inside the case, and then you screw the crown back down. Feels silky smooth. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the crown tube. Now, I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, this bracelet tapers from let's just check, 19.1 millimeters down to 15. So it is close to the 20 to 16 perfection personified taper. So we have a 39 millimeter case diameter. The lug to lug is 47, so it's 1 millimeter below the sweet spot. 48 is the perfect lug to lug. You'll know this from my previous reviews, because 48 fits collectors regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. So at 47 it's 1 millimeter short, but it is acceptable. The thing to note is it's a thick piece due to the box top hat double domed acrylic crystal, which does look like a domed plexiglass crystal used on the 5513. 14.6 is slightly tall. I'd like to see them reduce the thickness of this by 1.6 millimeters to bring it down to 13, because it does have a bubble back case back. They could delete 2 millimeters from the case back and use a lower dome on the box top hat crystal, and it would still have the aesthetic of a plexiglass 5513 crystal, but be 1.6 millimeters thinner. 13 millimeters is the sweet spot. At 14.6, it's going to be more difficult to slip underneath the shirt cuff if you wear business shirts, so therefore as a daily wear piece that's something to consider. 13 is the sweet spot, 13 or below, but at 14.6 it's slightly tall, and it does feel like that on the wrist. It doesn't feel top heavy, but it looks visually thick on wrist. It does look like a tall piece, largely due to the thick acrylic double dome crystal. Very aesthetically pleasing. Aluminium bezel insert with a patina peach tone to the loom pip matches the dial and handset. And visually, the bustle bezel does look very similar to the film prop, the 5513 Submariner worn by Roger Moore in the Live and Let Die film. They've done a very good job of mirror polishing the bustle teeth. The teeth don't feel sharp. It doesn't feel any sharper than a scalloped bezel used on a Submariner or a Submariner date, for example. So it's good. Visually, it does look like the bustle bezel, but the teeth aren't sharp. They're not going to cut or scratch your wrist, for example, or your fingers. And it does just give the impression of the bustle bezel without the sharpness of the teeth. So it's very good. It does look visually like a scalloped bezel used on the 5513, but you can see the bustle profile, which adds interest. Also good attention to detail with a hole drilled in the end link as per the film prop, so it's very faithful as an homage to the original. Comfort level is good. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet and I can still easily slide an index finger beneath the bracelet and clasp. So, this is correctly sized already for my 8-inch wrist. This is the large size bracelet, and as I've detailed, WMT offer the oyster style bracelet in 3 sizes. Standard for 6 to 7 inch wrist, large for 7 to 8 inch wrist, and extra large for 8 to 9 inch wrist respectively. I think the taper could be refined to 20 to 16, but at 19.1 to 15 it's close to it. 20mm lug width is correct. Clasp is low profile. It does give the vintage aesthetic of a 5513 or early Rolex clasp, and I like it. I think it's very good. They could have used a flip lock clasp such as an oyster clasp. That would have looked better, but I think it's nice. It does give a vintage aesthetic. Beautiful luster to it, nice large mirror polished bevels to it. The rivet links also give it a vintage aesthetic, and I think it's a great homage to the film prop given by Q to James Bond or Roger Moore in the Live and Let Die film from 1973. Feel good factor is fantastic. It's an interesting looking piece, and I really like the patina peach tone on the printed indices and also the handset. So comfort level is very good. Feel good factor is very good. And if you like watches from the James Bond films, this will appeal to you. So I think it's a cool watch. So let's do a loom test and we'll see how the loom performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, initially it looks good. The exciter in the C3 Patina Superlume Nova appears to glow brightly, but it lacks potency. You can see the Mercedes handsets are clearly glowing brighter, so that indicates more layers of C3 Superlume Nova on the Mercedes hour hand and the pencil minute hand. On the dial, the printed indices, we're clearly looking at less layers of C3 Superlume Nova. So I think what we're looking at is 3 to 4 layers on the handset versus 2 to 3 layers on the dial. Also, the lume pip on the aluminium bezel insert is immediately fading to nothing. That indicates 2 to 3 layers as per the dial. So just bear with me because the camera's struggling to autofocus on it because it's fading so quickly. I want to charge this up again and just test it one more time, trying to get the autofocus to focus on it because I want you to see the performance. There is room for improvement on this. I think it's disappointing because we're looking at a low tier piece below €500 price point, but at $440 or €387, it is at the top end of the low tier. Low tier is 0 to 500, and then mid-tier is €500 to €5,000 respectively, so it's at the top end of the low tier, 0 to €500 price point. Needs to have 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 or 5 to 6 layers of C3 Superlume Nova at this price point. Right, so that's now fully charged. So as you can see, again, initially the exciter looks potent on the Mercedes handset and also the dial and the lume pip. Good colour tone match, but on the lume pip it's fading immediately. On the printed indices it's fading immediately. The hands are brighter, so the potency is better. The exciter has more potency, but we're definitely not looking at 5 to 6 layers on the handset. The autofocus is now struggling, as you can see, because it's dimming so fast to darkness, it cannot focus on it anymore. So I think we're looking at 2 to 3 layers on the lume pip, 2 to 3 on the dial, 3 to 4 on the handset maximum. Definitely not 5 to 6. They really need to improve upon this. 5 to 6 layers on the lume pip, 5 to 6 layers on the dial, 5 to 6 layers on the handset. It's the industry standard for good reason, optimum performance. And it's inexpensive to do this. 5 to 6 layers of C3 Superlume Nova is negligible in terms of the increase to production costs to WMT watches. It's nothing. So they really need to improve the lume. Disappointing, but however, on a positive note, in daylight there's a good peach tone to it. The lume pip could be darker. It's a slightly lighter patina tone, but on the dial and the handset they do have the same peach tone as per a patina tritium dial used on the 5513. Does look very similar to the film prop used in Live and Let Die. It also had this kind of patina peach tone to the dial and hands, and when it was auctioned in 2015 by Philips Auction House in Geneva, it did look very similar. It did have an orange tone to the tritium printed dial and also the tritium handset. They had developed this orange tone, so it does look visually similar to the film prop, so they deserve credit for getting it accurately right, but the lume pip on the bezel insert is slightly too light. They need to darken it, so room for improvement on it. In the daylight it looks good visually, it looks like the film prop, but I think in the dark it's disappointing. It really should glow better with 5 to 6 layers. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. This uses the Ronda Caliber 756 quartz, which is Swiss made, and it has 4 joules, it's gold plated, and it has an incredible 7-year battery life. Just think about that for a moment. You could potentially purchase this piece and wear it daily for 7 years before needing to replace the battery. Very easy to replace the battery because it just has a conventional screw down stainless steel case back, so it's easy to remove the case back by unscrewing it and replace the battery. There's nothing different about the Ronda 756 quartz. It uses a conventional battery, but the only difference is it has that dimple, the button in the centre of the case back, so that reinstates. When you screw it back down, it reseals it to the hermetic seal of 100 metres. So there's no extra procedure involved in changing the battery, despite it having a button in the centre of the case back. So 7-year battery life is very impressive. Typically quartz movements only have a 2 or 3 year battery life. The stated accuracy is -10 to +20 seconds per month, so it's an incredibly accurate Ronda caliber. So just think about that for a moment. -10 to +20 seconds per month. That's not per day or per week. That is -10 to +20 per month. Better than ±1 second per day accuracy. I can confirm that this one is running at 0 seconds per day accuracy, ±0. Perfect accuracy. So at -10 to +20, it's a very accurate movement, and 7-year battery life is incredible. I would expect 3 years battery life typically from a Ronda quartz, but 7 years is very long power reserve, so it's very good. WMT deserve credit. They could have used a less expensive movement in this piece, but they haven't. They haven't used the cost-cutting measure. They've used the more expensive Ronda caliber 7.56, which is a premium grade. This is gold-plated with 4 jewels. So it's the better version of the 7.56. They also make a Swiss parts version, which is made in China, and that has 0 jewels, and it's silver rather than gold-plated. This is the gold-plated version. It has 4 jewels versus 0 jewels, and it's Swiss-made versus made in China from Swiss parts. So it's the better version. It's the Swiss-made version of the 7.56. So good quality movements, and I really like it. And of course the benefit is when you unscrew the crown, it allows the whole movement, the crystal, the bezel and the case back to rotate independently of the head of the piece, as per the film prop. And it works very well. 100 meters of hermetic seal. So for its 7-year battery life, 0 seconds per day, fantastic Swiss-made movement. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So low tier piece, price point is $440, which is €387. I'm going to declare it excellent quality, and I'm going to declare it excellent value at $440 or €387. There's only one negative to this piece, and that is the patina C3 Superluminova. It needs 5 to 6 layers, so I'd like to see a V2 of this watch made with 5 to 6 layers on the loom pip, the dial and the handset, but that is the only negative. Quality of the finishing to this piece is fantastic. The movement is excellent. The Ronda 7.56 quartz is Swiss made, 7-year battery life, -10 to +20, incredibly accurate. It's a good quality Swiss caliber. So good movement, and I really like it just because it's a faithful homage to the 5513 Submariner film prop used by Roger Moore in the James Bond film Live and Let Die. This is a really cool watch. I love the rotating bustle bezel, and aesthetically it does look very similar to the film prop. So it's a cool watch, and I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the WMT Royal Marine M16-010A. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.